Hello, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Our marriage felt like a quiet symphony. Each day, a familiar melody that made coming home easy. I'm Malcolm Pierce, 36, and for years I believed Jasmine and I were a good thing. Steady, generous, kind. We talked about growing old on a porch in North Carolina, about raising children who knew their history and kept their word. When I surprised her with 2 tickets to Paris, she cried and kissed my hands. We practiced simple French phrases at night, laughing at our accents, promising to try them on every barista and bus driver brave enough to listen. We landed at Charles de Gaulle under a clean blue sky, jet-lagged but buoyant. Jasmine clutched my arm in the taxi, like Paris might fly past if she let go. "Bonjour," she chirped to the driver, who smiled politely. Our hotel in Marais had a narrow elevator and a balcony that framed the gray, iron lacework of rooftops. We stood there, heads touching, saying, "Bonjour, merci, s'il vous plaît," until our words melted into giggles. I told her, "Je t'aime," and she answered in English, "I love you too," like vows renewed. We made it a game to over-enunciate every phrase. At a cafe, I ordered 2 croissants with the seriousness of a surgeon, then asked for fromage I could not pronounce. Jasmine teased me and then botched s'il vous plaît, turning it into a 4-syllable plea that made the server grin. We clinked tiny cups of espresso, counted pigeons, watched Parisians glide by. We practiced OSL Metro and took the line to the Louvre, pretending Mona Lisa winked at us for trying. It felt like a soft beginning, as if Paris had opened a door. On the second day, we walked along the Seine, palms linked, the river burnishing light into scattered coins. Jasmine squeezed my hand and asked to see Montmartre at sunset. I booked a dinner cruise for later in the week and texted Corey, my friend since college, now a detective back home. "We made it," I wrote. He replied with a thumbs up and a question mark, like he had typed more than deleted. I chalked it up to habit. Corey was never off duty in his head. I slipped the phone away and let Paris hold us. Corey called that night. His voice felt tight at the edges, the way it did when he was walking into a bad house with good officers. "How's it feel?" he asked. I told him about the butter, the art, the stone under my feet. He laughed, then asked, "Everything cool with Jasmine?" I blinked into the darkness. "Yeah," I said, "she's happy." He hesitated. "I got a weird ping earlier. Never mind. Enjoy your trip, Malcolm." I rolled over to watch Jasmine sleep, her breath even, her face lit by the city's distant halo. The next morning, Jasmine was electric. She wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, then shop for scarves in Saint-Germain. "We'll eat dinner late like real Parisians," she said. I practiced untable pour deux as we crossed a bridge lined with locks that promised forever. She took a picture of me framing the tower with my fingers. A man nearby offered to snap one of us together. Jasmine declined too quickly, then apologized, then squeezed my arm like she needed reassurance. I kissed her temple. The wind carried the iron scent of the city. At dinner, Jasmine flirted with her menu and the candlelight. She toasted to us, to bravery, to leaving Boston's snow for Paris's glow. After dessert, she said, "There's a wine bar I read about, not far, tiny, romantic." The streets narrowed, cobblestones eager to twist ankles. The bar was there, golden light, laughter, a chalkboard menu, and then her phone chimed. The way she glanced down, screen angled away, gave me a small chill. She smiled brightly and kissed my cheek. "Nothing," she said, "just my mom checking in." I believed her. The next day, we visited Montmartre as the sun blushed. Jasmine wandered ahead, trailing her fingers over old stone. A man in a navy cap looked at us twice. I thought he recognized the American in me. The posture, the shoes. At the top of the hill, Jasmine took my hand and said, "I want to remember this forever." We posed with Paris behind us, the sky smoothing into lavender. She leaned into me, light as breath. I told myself I was the luckiest man, that joy could be simple and still be true. That night, The hotel felt colder. Jasmine showered first, humming, steam rising like secrets. My phone buzzed. Corey again. Answer this. The text read. I stepped onto the balcony and called. He did not waste time. Malcolm, I need you to listen. Something about Jasmine's phone number is flagging my watch list. I might be wrong, but I'm getting pings near Gare du Nord linked to a guy named Andre Collins. Does that name ring a bell? I swallowed hard, felt the city tilt. Her ex, I said. The word turned my mouth dry. I did not want to scare you, Corey said, but I think you need to be careful. If she wants to go somewhere out of the way, stall. Text me live locations when you move. I felt stunned, stapled between loyalty and fear. Corey, that's my wife. His voice softened. And you're my brother. Maybe there's nothing. But if there is, I want you alive to fight about it. Jasmine called from the room. Baby? I pocketed the doubt like a folded knife and said, Coming. Paris breathed around us, indifferent and eternal. Jasmine woke me early. Let's do a surprise, she said, eyes bright. There's a pop-up market beyond the usual tourist spots, authentic, small. We can practice French with vendors. She squeezed my hands. It'll be fun. I heard Corey's warning like rain behind glass. Sure, I said carefully. Text me the address so I can map the route. She hesitated, then sent it. I forwarded it to Corey with my location. He wrote back one word. Noted. I told myself it would be fine. That marriage deserved trust like lungs deserved air. We took a metro to a station I did not know. OS lost sortie? I asked a passerby, who smiled and pointed. Jasmine laughed at the pointed, then tangled our fingers. On the street, the buildings felt closer, graffiti more insistent. The address was a few blocks away, a warehouse quarter with half-rolled shutters and the taste of metal in the air. Are you sure? I asked. She beamed. Imagine the stories we'll tell. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the man who always did. I walked inside first. They grabbed me fast. Two men, practiced, strong. A third stepped from shadow with a knife that looked more like intention than tool. I heard Jasmine gasp, then not at all. A bag went over my head. I was pitched, carried, dropped into a van that smelled like old fear. Zip ties bit my wrists. Someone pressed a boot on my spine to keep my breath shallow. The engine started. I yelled her name. A hand thudded into my ribs, a warning disguised as a correction. The city vanished behind the roar of motion. The bag came off a room that felt carved from concrete and neglect. My ankles were strapped to a chair, my arms lashed behind me. A low light hummed. The knife man leaned close. You're awake, he said in English. Good. Another held a phone, recording. A third unrolled tape like ribbon. I swallowed. Where's my wife? The knife man tilted his head like I had asked a joke. She's fine, he said. You will be too if someone pays. He tapped my chest with a blade, light as a finger. The first slap took my hearing and gave it back wrong. The second made my eyes water. When I did not beg, they escalated. A stun gun to my thigh, the bite sharp and ugly, my body jerking against restraints, a fist on my shoulder with a zip tie cut deep, a knee pressing my throat just long enough to tint the world violet. They made a video, pushed words at me, names, numbers, account logins. Say it, the cameraman insisted. Tell them you need money now. I stared at concrete until it swam. Hours lost their shape. They stretched the time between sips of water, so my tongue felt like paper. They left me under a light that buzzed warm, then cold. They spoke in French to one another, mocking my attempts at essayez vous plaît when I asked to use the restroom. Bravo, one said, clapping slow. They kicked my chair to jolt me awake, laughed when I flinched. You're tough, the knife man said, sounding almost curious. Let's see how tough when your wife stops calling. The word wife landed like a brick. In the gaps, I thought of home, the smell of Sunday pancakes, the squeak and the stare that warned me I had eaten after midnight. I thought of Jasmine's hand on my cheek, how her thumb traced a secret circle. I tried to hold that image, to make it heavier than the tape biting my ankles. But then the door opened and she stepped in. Jasmine, my wife, her hair pulled back neatly, her face set. Behind her, a man I recognized from old photos. Andre. His smile was not kind. Malcolm, she said, voice tight, just do what they say. I blinked, something tearing inside me that sound could not describe. Jasmine, I whispered, why? She looked at Andre like he owned the answer. He spoke for her. Love is expensive, he said, and you're insured. He walked closer, hands in his pockets. We'll keep it simple. Accounts, transfers, then we let you go. Jasmine flinched at the word let, as if it had splinters. I stared at her wedding ring. I stared until my eyes burned. She took a step, maybe toward me, maybe back. Please, I said, finding some last fragment of the city we had promised each other. Remember Paris. She swallowed, eyes glossing, then hardened them. I do, she said. I remember every time you chose work over us. The cruelty of it scraped bone. Andre placed a hand on her shoulder like a leash. We are done, he told me. Be smart. The cameraman lifted the phone again. My stomach lurched. Somewhere far away, I pictured Corey moving across a map like chess. They left to make calls, to argue with numbers. My breath returned like stolen property. The door whispered. A new man entered, thin and tired. He looked at me, then at the camera. They want you alive, he said quietly, English soft with French edges. So do I? He loosened the tie at my wrist a fraction, enough to let blood return pins and needles to my hands. Why? I asked. He shrugged. Everyone has rules. He left before I could thank him. I memorized his kindness, the way you memorize a path in the dark. The next wave came hard. They showed me Jasmine again, this time crying. Just say it, she begged. Please. I thought of how we practiced please together, how we laughed when we were wrong. The knife man dragged the blade over my forearm. Not enough to cut, just enough to promise. Now, Malcolm. I did not give them what they wanted. I gave them questions. I stalled. I spelled my bank's name slowly, like a child. Somewhere, Corey read the pauses as coordinates. Somewhere, the city sharpened into a plan. The stun gun met my ribs, my calf, the soft meat my upper arm. They counted in French, slow, delighted. My body answered each jolt with betrayal. A twist, a gasp, a noise I hated. They taped my mouth when I started to pray aloud. My shoulders throbbed. The chair had chewed grooves into my back. Drink. One said, holding a bottle just close enough. I took a mouthful and tasted metal, bile fear. Good, he said like I had earned a star. The camera blinked red, unapologetic. I focused on small things. The sound of boots on concrete, the pattern of rust on a pipe, the way the thin man's kindness changed a room's temperature by a few degrees. I counted my heartbeats between footsteps, tried to predict the door. I told myself each breath was a promise to Corey, to my mother, to the boy I had been. When Jasmine peered through the cracked door again, I let my eyes go empty. Let them see nothing in me to break. Let them underestimate what would rise. Night came like a curtain. The building creaked. A rat skittered somewhere out of sight. The men grew sloppy with fatigue. I heard an argument in the hall. Andre's low snarl, the knife man's clipped reply, Jasmine's whispering panic. I closed my eyes and pictured Corey's case board at home. Strings, photos, timelines. He knew where I ran on Saturdays. He knew which songs made me drive too fast. He had once found my lost dog in a snowstorm with a hunch and a borrowed flashlight. If anyone could thread Paris, it was him. The door blew inward like it had been kicked by a god. Shouts exploded. French bark from throats trained to cut air. A flashbang seared the room white. The chair toppled with me in it. Boots stampeded. A hand yanked the tape from my mouth, ripped the ties from my wrists. Malcolm. I knew that voice before I believed it. Corey hauled me upright. Behind him, French officers moved like black water. You okay? He asked. I tried to nod. He wrapped me in the kind of hug that fathers dream of for their sons. They swept the rooms, piling men into custody like trash finally bagged. The thin man stood with his hands raised, eyes on me. I nodded once. He blinked, relieved. A female officer found Jasmine in the hall, face chalk white, mascara streaked. She reached for me, a terrible reflex, and Corey stepped between us like a wall grown from the floor. "You do not touch him," he said, voice all steel. Andre tried to barrel through a side door, and his shield, he could not move. He screamed curses that did not carry weight. Outside, Paris was still Paris. Damp stone, blinking neon, a scooter hissing past. Medics swabbed my arm, checked pupils, asked questions in English and French. I watched Jasmine handcuffed, her ring glinting under an indifferent streetlight. She asked for me, then for a lawyer, then for a story she could live inside. Corey stood near, nodding through briefings with the calm of a man who had already stored every name. "How did you find me?" I asked finally, voice ragged. He smiled without joy. "You stalled. You trusted me, and their greed talks." I spent the night under hospital lights that did not buzz like the warehouse bulb. Corey sat by my bed, translating the flurry of official French into words I could hold. I told him about the kindness of the thin man, the jeering camera, Jasmine's eyes when I said, "Remember Paris." He wrote it all down in a small notebook. "You are not broken," he said. "You're breathing." I cried quiet tears that surprised me by running warm. He took my hand like the big brother he had always been. The next days folded into statements, signatures, and truth. The French officers thanked Corey with a handshake and a nod to the liaison who made the raid possible. Andre had records that read like bad weather. Jasmine's messages with him painted a grim mural. I stared into their plan until I could no longer see our living room. When they let me leave the hospital, I walked along the river at dusk. I practiced my French again. "Je suis vivant," I said softly. "I am alive." The words felt like unlocking. I flew home with Corey beside me, his shoulder a quiet anchor. In Boston, the air was colder and honest. I slept in my mother's guest room, listening to Radiator's his stories about survival. Some nights I dreamed of the chair, the light, the tape. Other nights I dreamed of the balcony, the rooftops, the way Paris looked like a promise I'd keep. I will rebuild. I will forgive myself. I will learn to trust my own hands again. And when I say bonjour now, it means I am still here. If you enjoyed this story, please comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.